Run your hand along a block of stone, heavier than a loaded airliner, and try to explain how anyone lifted it into place. No engine, no crane, no wheel that could carry the weight. The people who set it there left no instructions. They left only the stone. All over the world, ancient civilizations built things that still refuse to add up. These are the impossible places, the lost ancient marvels that defy all logic, and after thousands of years, the modern world still cannot fully solve them. Before we are done, a canyon in Jordan will open like a curtain onto a palace carved from rose-colored rock. A ridge in the Andes will climb out of the morning fog with an entire stone city balanced along its spine. And on a dry plain in Myanmar, one sunrise will light up thousands of temples at once. Stay with us and hit subscribe. We are taking you to the places that were never supposed to be possible. Rocamadour sits in southern France, a medieval village that clings to the face of a limestone cliff above the Alzou Canyon. From the valley floor, the whole place rises in 3 stacked levels: the old town at the bottom, the sanctuary in the middle, and the fortress crowning the top. What holds the eye is that the stone houses do not spread across flat ground. They grip the wall of a cliff nearly 400 feet tall. Since the 12th century, this has been one of the great pilgrimage sites of Europe, drawing travelers across the limestone country to the shrine of the Black Madonna. The path to the sacred level climbs 216 stone steps, and pilgrims once made that climb on their knees. Every step carries you farther from the ground and deeper into the rock. Chapels, narrow corridors, and worn stone gates are tucked between the bare cliff and walls raised by hand 800 years ago. Medieval people turned a rugged gorge into a place to live, to pray, and to defend all at once. On the west bank of the Nile near Luxor, Egypt, the Valley of the Kings hides its dead inside the mountains instead of raising them above the sand. There are no pyramids here. From the surface, it looks like an empty and sun-scorched valley, nothing more. The secret is underground. For 500 years, the pharaohs of the New Kingdom chose this dry ravine precisely because it was hard to find. More than 60 tombs were cut straight into the limestone, with long corridors sloping down to burial chambers deep inside. The walls of those corridors are covered with gods, rituals, and spells meant to carry the king's soul into the afterlife. The most famous of them belongs to Tutankhamun, opened in 1922, with its treasures still in place. Outside, only bare rock and heat. Below it, an entire hidden city of royal tombs stayed sealed for more than 3,000 years. Cut into a cliff in the Fars region of Iran, Naqsh-e-Rostam is the royal graveyard of the Persian kings. From a distance, 4 giant cross shapes appear carved directly into the mountainside, high above the reach of any hand. That height is the strange part. The burial chambers of the kings are not sunk into the earth. They sit far up the sheer rock face, where the openings look like stone doorways leading into the memory of an empire. One of them is tied to Darius the Great, among the most powerful rulers the ancient world ever produced. Below the tombs, later carvings show kings, victories, and grand ceremonies pressed into the stone layer, century over century. In that dry land, the dark tomb mouths still hang on the cliff like sealed doors. Whatever passed through them was meant never to come back. High in the Andes of Peru, on a narrow ridge between 2 peaks, sits Machu Picchu, a complete stone city built where no city should be able to stand. It rises nearly 8,000 feet above sea level, wedged along the spine of a mountain with steep slopes and deep valleys falling away on either side. So how do you build a city on a slope like that? The Inca answer was to stop fighting the mountain and make the mountain itself the foundation. Before a single house or temple went up, they carved the hillside into terraces, long steps of soil held in place by stone shaped to catch the rain, drain the water, and keep the whole slope from sliding away. Only then did the buildings follow. The walls were fitted so tightly that many need no mortar at all. Block set against block so close, a knife blade will not slip between them. That fit is why the city still holds through the tremors that shake these mountains when looser structures would have shaken apart. The paths are narrow and the stairs are steep because the city was built the way the ridge runs straight up and down the slope. In the early morning, the fog pulls back from the peaks and the terraces and temples surface out of the cloud, one by one. Llamas still graze on the grassy platforms unbothered, as if this place never quite stopped being lived in. If a stone city balanced on a mountaintop is the kind of thing you came here for, do us a favor and hit subscribe. The road ahead only gets stranger. Bagan spreads across a dry plain beside the Ayeyarwady River in central Myanmar, and there is nowhere else on earth quite like it. Between the 11th and 13th centuries, the kings of the pagan kingdom turned this hot and dusty plain into the largest center of Buddhism in the region. The number is what stops you. More than 10,000 temples, pagodas, and shrines were raised here in brick. Over 2,000 of them still stand today, scattered to the horizon in every direction. Many hold thick walls, dark corridors, and large seated Buddhas, so each temple feels like its own small world, sealed in brick. On the older walls, faded patches of painting hint at the color and ritual that once filled these rooms. The towers do not stand alone. Together they form a single vast landscape of faith, the same shape repeated thousands of times across the plain. At dawn, hot air balloons drift low over the field, and the early light spreads across an ocean of brick roofs, stretching into the mist. About 30 miles northeast of Mexico City, Teotihuacan, Mexico, spreads across the high plateau so vast that even the Aztecs stood before it in awe when they came upon it. Its pyramids, plazas, and long stone avenues had already stood for many centuries. Here is the part no one can settle. We still do not know for certain who built this place. The Aztecs simply found it, named it, and treated it as sacred. The people who raised it had vanished long before. At its height, the city covered about 8 square miles laid out with homes, temples, and one great road running straight through the middle. The largest pyramid climbs more than 200 feet into the dry air, a mountain made by human hands. Along the central avenue, platform after platform opens up one after another, as if the whole city had been designed for ceremonies on a scale we can barely picture. It was a capital without a name we can trust, built by people we cannot name. Now let us try something different and put a question straight to you. Off the western edge of Japan, near the island of Yonaguni, something sits on the sea floor that people have argued about for decades. Divers first noticed it in 1986, resting between 16 and 80 feet down in fast-moving water near Okinawa. It has flat terraces, straight edges, and sharp vertical walls, and from a diver's view, it looks a great deal like the foundation of a sunken building. So here is the split. Some people are certain this is the work of human hands, an ancient structure swallowed by the ocean. Many geologists say it is only natural rock sandstone that cracks in clean layers and gets worn square by the current over thousands of years. That argument is the whole appeal. Yonaguni sits right on the line between archaeology, geology, and what we want to believe. So what do you think it is? Built by people or shaped by the sea alone? Ephesus lies on the western coast of Turkey, and it is a port city that lost its sea. The water that once carried ships to its docks has pulled back over the centuries, leaving the harbor stranded far inland, and the marble streets now run toward dry ground. Walk in through the main gate, and the avenue opens in polished stone, the same road that once welcomed merchants, soldiers, and pilgrims from across the ancient world. The building that stops everyone is the Library of Celsus. Its tall and layered front, rising in the sun like a wall built out of knowledge. The people here laid the whole city out with real order. Paved streets, drainage, public baths, and open squares. Cut into the hillside is a vast theater that could hold as many as 25,000 people, and from the top rows you can almost hear the roar that once filled it. Nearby once stood the Temple of Artemis, counted among the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Almost nothing of it remains now, only a marker where a wonder used to be. On Salisbury Plain in southern England, a ring of giant stones stands alone on open grassland, and Stonehenge may be the oldest question humanity ever carved. Work on it began around 5,000 years ago, long before anyone here had a lifting machine or a metal tool. The stones are the puzzle. Many of them weigh dozens of tons, yet they were stood upright and capped across the top, with a fit that looks almost deliberate to the inch. Some of the smaller ones, the blue stones, were carried from Wales more than 150 miles away over a route no one has fully explained. On the morning of the summer solstice, the rising sun lines up exactly with the main axis of the circle, tying this place tightly to the sky. Scattered around it are old burial mounds and the marks of long-lost rituals. Stonehenge was never a single monument standing by itself. It was the heart of a much wider, sacred landscape, and it still refuses to give a full answer. In the middle of a green and tropical plain in Sri Lanka, a single mass of granite rises straight up out of the flat land, and on its summit sits Sigiriya, the palace a king raised on the back of a stone lion. In the 5th century, King Kashyapa I chose the top of this rock as the seat of his power. The strange ambition is the height. People carried an entire palace with its pools and its walkways up and around a cliff that stands nearly 600 feet above the plain. At the foot of the rock, the water gardens are laid out in careful symmetry, a sign of how tightly this place was once controlled. Partway up, ancient frescoes still glow in sheltered pockets of rock, holding onto colors and faces painted more than 1,500 years ago. The old path to the summit once passed through the Lion Gate, and 2 enormous stone paws are all that survive of it now. From the top, the whole plain of Sri Lanka opens out below, and Sigiriya feels less like a fortress than a throne set down in the middle of nature. Near Cusco, Peru, high on the Andean plateau, the ground opens into a set of giant stone rings that sink deep into the earth. This is Moray, and from the rim it looks like an amphitheater made of soil and stone, one circle inside the next, dropping toward a center far below. The clever part is invisible at first. Each ring sits at a slightly different level, and each level holds a slightly different climate. The top can run as much as 27 degrees Fahrenheit, cooler than the bottom. In a single bowl in the ground, the Inca had built many small worlds of temperature and moisture. Most researchers think this was a testing ground, a place to learn which crops could survive which heights across the empire. The stone walls hold the soil in place, and a hidden drainage system carries the rain away, so the deep pit never floods. Stand at the edge and look down, and the whole thing still feels like a laboratory left running in silence long after the scientists went home. On the flat limestone country of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula stands Chichen Itza, the Maya city of the feathered serpent. At its heart rises El Castillo, a four-sided pyramid so exact that the building itself keeps a calendar. Count the steps, and the design gives itself away. Each of the four staircases has 91 steps, and with the platform on top, the total comes to 365 for every day of the year. Nothing here was placed by accident. Twice a year, on the spring and autumn equinox, the low sun catches the corners of the pyramid, and a line of light and shadow slides down the northern edge in the shape of a serpent, moving toward a carved stone head at the base. For a few minutes, the stone seems to come alive. Not far off lies the great ball court set between two long walls, where sound carries strangely, and a game once fed straight into Maya power and ritual. Here is a question worth stopping on. How do you move a single block of stone as heavy as 3 loaded jets with no engine anywhere on Earth to help at Baalbek in the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon? That question is carved right into the ground. The Romans called this place Heliopolis, the city of the sun, and built one of the largest temple complexes in the ancient world. A handful of giant columns from the Temple of Jupiter still stand against the driest mountains, rising far taller than anything near them. The real puzzle is underneath. The temple rests on foundation blocks so massive that 3 of them together, called the Trilithon, weigh around 800 tons each. A 4th, abandoned in the quarry nearby, comes close to 1,000 tons, still lying where it was cut. No one can say for certain how they were moved or raised into place. So the next time someone calls the ancient world primitive, bring them here and let them try to explain the stones. In southern India, in a landscape that looks like a sea of stone, lies Hampi, once the capital of the Vijayanagara Empire. All around, huge granite boulders sit stacked on the dry ground as though a giant had scattered them from the sky, and in the 14th century, a whole city rose right in the middle of them. What sets Hampi apart is that it never fought the land. The temples, courtyards, and old streets grew up among the boulders, so a shrine and the rock beside it seemed to come from the same hand. At the Vitala temple stands the famous stone chariot granite, carved so finely that the heavy stone almost looks ready to roll away. Along the old market rows, lines of carved pillars still stand where trade, pilgrimage, and royal power once met. Down at the Tungabhadra River, worn stone steps still lead to the water, holding the memory of a city that once lived close to the everyday rhythm of the current. In the desert of southern Jordan, there is a city you cannot see until you are almost inside it. To reach Petra, you walk a long and narrow crack in the rock, the walls rising high on both sides, and then the passage ends and a huge facade in rose-red stone stands in front of you, cut straight into the cliff. That building is only the entrance to the trick. The Nabateans did not raise Petra on top of the land, they carved it into the sandstone mountains, turning bare rock into tombs, halls, and ceremonial rooms across an entire hidden city. But the rose-colored stone is not the real secret. The real secret is water. Petra sits in a desert that should never have supported a city this size, so its builders cut channels, dams, and reservoirs into the rock to catch every rare flood and hold it through the dry months. That control of water is what turned a slot in the cliffs into a capital. It made Petra a vital stop for camel caravans crossing the desert on the ancient trade routes, a rich city where there had no business being one. As the sun slides across the cliff face, the stone shifts through pink and gold, and Petra looks less built than grown a city the mountains agreed to keep. If a lost city carved into a canyon is why you are still here, take a second to like this video and subscribe. We are only halfway, and the strangest places are still ahead. In the north of Jordan lies Jerash, one of the best preserved Roman cities anywhere in the Middle East. Pass through its old stone gate, and the place unfolds in long rows of columns, paved roads, and open ruins, baking under a dry sun laid out almost exactly as they were nearly 2,000 years ago. What makes Jerash rare is how complete it feels. This was once part of the Decapolis, a network of important cities, and here, a whole Roman street plan still stands, not as scattered fragments, but as a city you can walk. The Oval Plaza is the piece that stops people, a wide stone square, ringed by columns in a shape almost never seen in ancient design. From it runs the Cardo Maximus, the main road, where the wheels of chariots wore grooves into the stone that you can still trace with your eye. Cut nearby are theatres shaped so carefully that a voice on the stage still carries clean to the highest row. On the Giza Plateau in Egypt, more than 4,500 years after they were built, the three Great Pyramids still stand in the desert like a problem no one has fully solved. They sit in a precise arrangement, their faces turned toward the sky and toward the land of the dead. The hard part to accept is the tool set. The ancient Egyptians raised these mountains of stone with simple tools, human muscle, and an almost unreal talent for measurement. The Great Pyramid alone holds about 2.3 million stone blocks, many weighing several tons each set in layer after careful layer. Every face of it lines up almost exactly with the four cardinal directions, which means this was as much mathematics and astronomy as it was labor and royal will. At its foot lies the Great Sphinx, still and watchful, a stone guardian at the edge of the world of kings. Whatever technique they used, they trusted it enough to build for eternity. Near Siem Reap in Cambodia, spread through forest and open plain, stands Angkor Wat, the largest religious monument ever built. From a distance, its 5 central towers rise together in the shape of a sacred mountain carved out of stone. The Khmer Empire raised it in the 12th century first as a Hindu temple and later as a Buddhist one, and the whole design runs along a single clear line. A long causeway crosses a wide moat and leads straight into the heart of the stone. Along the inner walls, carvings stretch for hundreds of feet. armies, ceremonies, myths, and scenes of royal life pressed into the rock. The most famous shows the churning of the Sea of Milk, where gods and demons haul on a giant serpent in a slow cosmic tug of war.
Alright, we are inside Angkor Wat, and I'm looking.
When the still water of the moat catches the towers, Angkor Wat seems to stand on the earth and float above it at the same time. Far out in the Pacific on Rapa Nui, a remote island belonging to Chile, hundreds of giant stone faces stand on open grass, like a line of silent guards. These are the moai, carved by the Rapa Nui people from soft volcanic rock, the tallest standing more than 30 feet high and weighing over 80 tons. The wonder here is the isolation. This is one of the most cut-off places on Earth, yet its people quarried, carried, and raised more than 900 of these figures across the island with no world nearby to borrow ideas from. Most of the moai stand on long stone platforms with their backs to the sea, facing inland, as if keeping watch over the community living behind them. To the Rapa Nui, they were never only statues, they were ancestors holding the sacred power of the dead. Some still wear tall red stone caps on their heads, sharpening their outline against the wide and empty sky. Let us slow down for a moment and just stand here. Deep in the rainforest of northern Guatemala, Tikal was once one of the great capitals of the Maya world, and today it feels less like a ruin than a city the jungle is quietly taking back. Close your eyes at the base of one of its temples, and the first thing you notice is the sound. Birds, insects, wind moving through the canopy, and somewhere off in the trees, the low call of howler monkeys. Then you open them, and stone pyramids are pushing up through the green all around you. The Maya built tall temples, wide plazas, and stone palaces right in the heat and damp of the jungle. With no big river running through, they lived on reservoirs and careful rainwater collection, and they linked the city with raised roads that held up through the long rainy season. Steep steps climb each temple toward platforms where ceremonies once took place high above the plazas below. Stand there long enough, and the forest is the loudest thing left. In the center of Rome, Italy, the Colosseum still stands as the largest arena the ancient world ever built. From the outside, its stacked rings of stone arches look both heavy and exact, a wall of curves rising level over level. The Romans finished it in the 1st century, once they had mastered concrete and the stone arch, learning to stack heavy rock so it could carry its own weight. It could seat tens of thousands, yet it was designed so all those people could pour in and out. Through dozens of separate passages, a crowd handled like water through channels. Under the arena floor ran a hidden maze of rooms where gladiators, wild animals, and stage machinery waited out of sight before rising into the light. This was less a building than a machine for moving crowds and staging spectacle. Climb to the upper tiers today, and modern Rome spreads out around the ruined rooftops and old walls woven into a living city. In the Fars region of Iran, on a vast stone terrace at the foot of a dry mountain, lie the ruins of Persepolis, once the ceremonial capital of the Persian Empire. From a distance, you see broken columns, broad staircases, and the platforms of vanished palaces. Darius I began building it in the 6th century before Christ, when the empire reached across much of the known world. He set the whole city on a huge man-made terrace, as though Persian power had to be lifted clear of the ordinary ground. The stairways are carved with lines of messengers from many nations, each carrying gifts toward the king. The tall columns of the Great Hall once held a roof over the space where rulers received delegations from across the empire, and every road of power ran through a gate they called the Gate of All Nations. In 330 before Christ, the army of Alexander burned Persepolis to the ground. What the fire left behind still holds the shape of a fallen empire in stone. On the island of Java, Indonesia, among green plains and distant volcanoes, rises Borobudur, the largest Buddhist monument on Earth. Built between the 8th and 9th centuries under the Sailendra dynasty, the whole structure is a single carved mountain of stone. More than 2,600 relief panels and 72 bell-shaped stupas cover it, so the temple reads almost like one continuous sculpture. Seen from above, the entire building forms a mandala, a map of the Buddhist universe laid out in stone. Pilgrims do not climb it in a straight line. They walk a slow spiral, circling the temple level by level, following carvings of ordinary life, suffering, and the path beyond it, rising a little higher with each turn. At the summit, ringed stupas with open stonework hide seated Buddhas in silence inside them. When morning mist settles over the dark stone, Borobudur looks like a sacred mountain meant to be read through footsteps, light and quiet. In the mountains of Georgia, an entire cliffside was hollowed out to make Varzea an ancient cave monastery carved straight into the rock. Looking up from the valley of the Kura River, you see rows of dark openings like a city cut into the face of a mountain. Most of it was carved in the 12th century, in the time of King George III and his daughter Queen Tamar. They turned a whole mountainside into a warren of rooms, tunnels, wine cellars, and chapels, all threaded together deep inside the stone for living, praying, and defense. The old church at its heart still holds faded frescoes, keeping the spirit of the monastery alive in the dark. Then in 1283, a huge earthquake tore the outer wall of the cliff away. What the collapse left is strange to look at: a whole hidden city sliced open, its private rooms suddenly bared to the daylight. In the heart of Rome, Italy, the Roman Forum is the ground where the Roman Empire once did its daily business. This was the center of everything, where speakers argued in public, merchants traded, and crowds moved along stone-paved roads. Seen from above, it looks like a low valley of ancient stone, caught between the city's hills and its modern buildings. The Forum is not one monument, but a whole layer of the old city lying open under the sky of Rome. Broken temple columns, the foundations of great halls, and triumphal arches show how Roman power was built out of stone and ritual. Down the middle runs the Sacred Way, the road where victory parades once entered the city in triumph. Around it, The Palatine and Capitoline hills rise and fall, so the Forum feels like it sits in the very hollow of ancient Rome. Rising on a rocky hill in the middle of Athens, Greece, the Acropolis has crowned the city for nearly 2,500 years. In the 5th century before Christ, the Athenians turned this hilltop into their center of religion, politics, and art. The wonder is in the precision. Great blocks of marble were hauled up the slope and fitted into temples with proportions that still look almost perfect to the eye. The columns of the Parthenon were subtly shaped and tilted quiet tricks of design that make the whole temple appear more balanced than plain straight lines ever could. Stone gateways, temple platforms, and worn steps mark this out as the most sacred ceremonial ground of the ancient city. Stand at the edge, and modern Athens spreads far below. In a single view, the deep past and the living present sit one on top of the other. Deep in the Sahara of southeastern Algeria lies Tassili Najer, where the desert itself becomes a book about a world that has vanished. From far off, it looks like a maze of sandstone pillars worn by wind and time into shapes that seem to belong to another planet. But the true wonder here is not a building at all. It is the art. More than 15,000 ancient paintings and carvings still cling to these rock walls, some of them close to 12,000 years old. On the dark stone, people long gone left giraffes, cattle, hunters, and human figures moving across the land. Those images carry a quiet shock because they prove the Sahara was once green, a place of rivers, animals, and living communities, not the endless dry sand of today. Among cliffs that feel like the surface of the moon, the oldest hands we know of turned bare rock into a book of memory and left it open for us to find. From cliffside cities to hidden temples and stone circles older than history, these impossible places were raised by ancient civilizations who worked in conditions that should have stopped them and did not. We still cannot fully explain how. Maybe that is the point. Some of them will sit with you long after the screen goes dark, a shape in the back of your mind that will not quite settle. So before you go, tell us in the comments which of these ancient marvels stayed with you, and we will keep chasing the strangest places left on Earth. The train is moving forward, but there is almost nowhere to go. So what is it actually like to ride them? Today we are traveling across some of the most dangerous, unusual, and extraordinary train journeys on Earth in stunning 4K. Stay with us until the final journey, because the next railway may be even more extraordinary than the last. And before we begin, tell us in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to know what part of the world you are joining us from. At Tongi, in Bangladesh, the railway disappears into a sea of people as a train pushes its way through one of the busiest rail corridors in the country. Then the scene changes completely. High above the mountains of China, a sightseeing train climbs along the cliffs of Darjeeling Mountain, with sheer drops falling away beneath the tracks. Far above the Andes, the Tren a las Nubes carries passengers toward nearly 14,000 feet above sea level, where the mountains stretch far beyond the windows and the air grows noticeably thinner. And thousands of miles away in Utah, another train crosses the Great Salt Lake Railroad Causeway, passing through an immense landscape of saltwater and mineral-rich flats. But these are only a few of the journeys waiting ahead. Across the world, trains travel through crowded cities, cling to mountainsides, cross open water, squeeze through narrow valleys, and climb into some of the highest railway landscapes on Earth. Some of these routes were built more than a century ago, others are modern feats of engineering, and all of them take passengers into places where a railway seems almost impossible.
But if you keep going, you can go out.
High in the Andes of northwestern Argentina runs a railway that earned a name most trains never do. They call it the Tren a las Nubes, the train to the clouds. It is one of the highest railways on Earth, and it climbs to a place where the thin air itself becomes part of the danger. The line sets out near the town of San Antonio de los Cobres and grinds upward across the Puna, a vast, treeless high desert, the color of rust and ochre. There are no tunnels boring through the mountains here. When the American engineer Richard Morey laid out this route back in 1921, he turned down the easy fixes. No cogwheel, no toothed rail to bite into the climb. Instead, the train earns its height the hard way, doubling back on itself through a dizzying system of zigzags and spirals, crawling into the sky, one switchback at a time. The reward is a single unforgettable structure, the La Polverilla Viaduct. It is a curved steel bridge about 735 feet long and 207 feet high, flung across a raw canyon at nearly 13,850 feet above sea level. As the train eases onto it, the ground drops clean away, and for a few seconds, the carriages seem to ride on nothing but cold mountain air. That altitude is the quiet threat. This high, your lungs get barely 2/3 of the oxygen they expect, and the climb comes fast. Passengers keep oxygen close at hand, and the crew watches for the headaches and swimming vision that arrive when the mountain starts to win. In 2014, a train slipped from these rails at around 13,000 feet, and hundreds of people had to be walked and carried down off the pass. Every corner of the world for this one guided journey into the clouds. You feel the wind pour through the open window and moan across bare rock. And crossing that viaduct with the Andes stacked to the horizon and the desert floor impossibly far below, you understand exactly how small a person is up here and how stubborn one has to be to lay iron across the roof of the world. This is Tongi in Bangladesh, a crowded town on the banks of the Turag River, a short ride north of the capital Dhaka. For most of the year, its railway looks ordinary. Then, once a year, the Bishwa Ijtema arrives, the second largest Islamic gathering on earth, and close to 5 million pilgrims pour toward this single spot. When the final prayer ends, they all try to leave at once. Bangladesh Railway lays on special trains for the pilgrimage, but no timetable was ever built for a crowd like this. The carriages fill, then the doorways fill, and then the roof becomes the last seat available. Look closely, and the train almost vanishes. Steel and windows disappear under a living shell of people packed shoulder to shoulder more than a dozen feet above the rails, riding the wide colonial era tracks the British left behind.
Well, this guy's just jumping on. He's just jumped on a moving train. Look at him. Look at him.
There are no straps, no railings, nothing to hold but each other and the ridge of the roof. A sudden break, a low bridge, a bare electric line overhead. Any one of them can turn a journey home into a funeral. Everyone up there knows it. They climb up anyway. That is the strange heart of this place. It is not thrill-seeking, and it is not spectacle. It is faith heavy enough that thousands will gamble the trip home on the roof of a moving train and count the risk as worth it. Climbing the flank of Mount Washington in New Hampshire in the United States is a little train that has been doing the impossible since 1869. This is the Mount Washington Cog Railway, the first mountain climbing cog railway ever built, and it crawls toward a summit known for some of the worst weather on Earth. The train does not roll on ordinary wheels. A toothed center rail, a cog, grips the locomotive and drags it up slopes far too steep for any normal train to hold. The cruelest of them is a trestle called Jacob's Ladder, pitched at a brutal 37% grade. On that stretch, the locomotive is actually built, crooked, its boiler tilted, just so it stays level while the mountain drops away beneath it. Then, there is the mountain itself. The summit sits at 6,288 feet, and in 1934, the wind up here was clocked at 231 miles an hour. For decades, the highest surface wind speed ever recorded anywhere on the planet. Calm sunshine can turn to a screaming whiteout in minutes. The little railway has climbed through nearly all of it, though not without a price. In 1967, a train slipped from the rack near Jacob's Ladder and 8 people lost their lives. So here you are, tipped backward in that crooked car, the cog grinding under your feet, wind hammering the glass. Is this a triumph of stubborn American engineering, or a dare you should never have taken? In the green hills of Kanchanaburi in western Thailand runs a line that people have never stopped calling by one terrible name: the Death Railway. On the surface, it looks gentle, a single track threading through jungle, curving along limestone cliffs, crossing the wide brown river Kwai on trestles of timber and steel. Ride it today, and school children share the carriage with you. The horror is buried just under all that green. This railway was thrown down in barely over a year, from 1942 to 1943, by the occupying Japanese army during the Second World War. They wanted a supply line running roughly 258 miles from Thailand into Burma. Across country earlier, surveyors had judged all but impossible, so they forced it through with captive hands. More than 60,000 Allied prisoners of war and some 200,000 Asian laborers were made to carve it out of the hills with elephants, dragging timber through the mud beside them. The cost is almost impossible to hold in your head. By the time the last spike went in, more than 100,000 people were dead from disease, starvation, exhaustion, and open cruelty. spread across 258 miles of track that is a grim reckoning of close to 400 lives for every single mile. Nowhere carries it like Hellfire Pass. Here, men cut a corridor straight through solid rock, roughly 80 feet deep and 250 feet long, with little more than hammers, hand chisels, and worn-down bodies. They labored around the clock through the worst of it, lit after dark by burning torches and oil fires. It was that sight, starving men working in the flame light, that gave the pass its name. Only the Thai stretch still carries trains now out as far as Nam Tok. When the wheels roll slow across those old wooden bridges, it is hard to hear anything triumphant in the sound. Just the quiet weight of what a single railway line was allowed to cost. Not every dangerous railway hangs over an abyss. Some run straight through your grocery shopping. This is the Maeklong Railway Market in Samut Songkhram, Thailand, and at first glance, it looks like any other packed local market. Vegetables, fresh fish, buckets of red chilies, all laid out under low awnings in a crowded lane. Then you notice what the lane actually is. Running right down the middle beneath the produce are two live railway tracks. Roughly 8 times a day, a real train comes through here. A horn sounds somewhere down the line, and the whole market performs a trick it has perfected over more than a century. Awnings fold back, baskets slide clear, and vendors draw their goods in, just far enough sometimes, only a hand's width from the wheels, as the train eases past at a slow walking pace. The moment it clears everything, swings back out. Fish and vegetables return to their spots beside the rails, as though nothing happened. Locals gave the place a perfect name: Talad Rom Hoop, the umbrella pull-down market. The line opened back in 1905, and the market simply refused to move aside for it. So the two learned to share the same narrow strip of ground over and over, day after day, without missing a beat. Out on the edge of the Sahara, in Mauritania, one of the longest and heaviest trains on Earth comes crawling across the sand. This is the iron ore train, and it has been making the same brutal run since 1963. A single track, 437 miles of it, ties the desert mining town of Zuarat to the Atlantic port of Nouadhibou, with almost nothing but emptiness in between. The scale is hard to believe. The train can stretch close to 1.5 miles from end to end, more than 200 open wagons heaped with raw iron ore dragged through a furnace of sand and wind. For years, locals and a handful of hardened travelers have ridden it free, climbing up to perch right on top of the ore, wrapped against the dust for a crossing that can last most of a day. It is not a comfortable kind of adventure travel. By day, the heat climbs past 100 degrees. After dark, the desert turns bitterly cold, and fine, iron dust works its way into everything: your clothes, your eyes, your lungs. One hard jolt, one moment of bad sleep too near the edge, and the Sahara is waiting below. And yet, lying back on a mountain of ore as the sun drops and the stars come out over the dunes, riders describe a strange, stripped-down kind of freedom out here. Nothing but the rumble of steel, the cold night air, and 1,000 miles of open desert in every direction. Dajui Mountain rises in Zixi County, deep in China's Jiangxi province, a land of ancient forest and 1,000-year-old Buddhist temples, where the peaks spend half the year hidden in cloud. Bolted to the face of that mountain is one of the strangest scenic railways in the world. The cliffside train runs for roughly 8 miles along a track pinned to sheer rock climbing to around 3,900 feet. Its carriages are panoramic glass floor to ceiling, so there is almost nothing between you and the drop. On a clear morning, the ride is pure postcard, a breathtaking glide above a sea of white cloud with green pines breaking through below. That is the bucket list version, the one in the brochure. Then the cloud thins, the valley opens beneath the glass, and the postcard turns to vertigo. For long stretches, the cabin hangs out over open air, hugging a wall of stone, with the canyon floor a dizzying distance down. Your eyes tell you the floor is solid. Everything older and more animal in you disagrees. This is adventure travel engineered as a controlled scare-reel danger, sanded down to something you can buy a ticket for and photograph on the way through. So here is the honest question. Would you press your palm flat against that glass and look straight down? Or would you sit dead center, stare at the ceiling, and wait for solid ground? In the mountains of Graubünden, in eastern Switzerland, stands a bridge that seems built to frighten you and delight you in the very same breath. This is the Landwasser Viaduct, one of the most photographed structures on the entire Rhaetian Railway and part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site. A slender, stone bridge, 6 tall limestone arches curves through the air 213 feet above a wild valley floor. Follow that curve to its far end, and it runs not onto solid ground, but straight into a black tunnel mouth carved into a sheer cliff. There is no run-up and no pause. The train sweeps across the arch's banks, hard into the bend, and disappears into the rock. What makes it stranger still is how it was raised. Back in 1901, the engineer Alexander Akatos built those tall piers with almost no scaffolding at all, lifting the stone into place with cranes instead. More than a century later, it still carries the Glacier Express and the Bernina Express, 2 of the most celebrated scenic railway journeys anywhere in the world. Ride across it, and the illusion is complete. As the carriages lean into that tight curve, the piers fall away beneath the windows, and for a few long seconds, it feels less like crossing a bridge and more like being flung clean off the edge of one out into open alpine air. Out in northern Utah in the United States, a single rock railroad runs straight across the Great Salt Lake, the largest saltwater lake in the Western Hemisphere. From the ground, it looks like an ordinary freight line. From the air, it becomes one of the strangest sights on any railway map in the country. The causeway is a 20-mile wall of rock and fill part of the historic route first laid across the water back in 1902. It does something no bridge was ever meant to do. It cuts the lake clean in two, and the two halves refuse to match. On the north side, The water turns a deep rose red, so salty that little more than microbes and tiny brine shrimp can survive in it. On the south side, fed by fresh rivers, it stays a pale blue-green. One rock line, two different seas. Here is the part the postcards leave out. This whole structure is slowly sinking. It sits on a soft lake bed of silt and ooze right over a crack in the Earth's crust, and across the years it has settled some 15 feet down into the muck. Add water saltier than the ocean quietly gnawing at everything made of metal, and you have a working railroad built on a foundation that is trying to swallow it. Roughly 20 freight trains still cross it every single day. So would you trust 20 miles of rock, floating on pudding poison, bright water pressing in on both sides to carry thousands of tons of steel back and forth, year after year? At 2,253 meters, the Bernina Pass is the highest railway crossing in the Alps. In winter, the express moves through a world of pure white. Snow walls rise 4 meters on either side of the track. The windows fog from the contrast between the heated carriage and -20 outside. When the clouds break, the Morteratsch Glacier appears 3 kilometers of ancient ice, retreating a little further each decade. The train's most dramatic moment is the Brusio spiral viaduct, a full circular loop the train makes to descend without a tunnel. You watch the locomotive pass below you, then above you, as the carriages spiral around. It defies intuition completely. But when you're sitting in glass-roof carriages surrounded by mountains that have outlasted every civilization that ever looked at them, intuition stops mattering. Scale takes over, and for a few minutes, you understand your actual size in this world. Up in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado in the United States, a little steam train performs a trick that looks like it belongs on a toy set. This is the Georgetown Loop Railroad, and its whole reason for existing is a problem of pure stubbornness. Two old silver mining towns, Georgetown and Silver Plume, sit barely 2 miles apart, but the slope between them was far too steep for a train to climb head-on. So back in 1884, at the height of the Colorado Silver Rush, engineers refused to give up. Instead of going straight, they built a corkscrew. The line loops all the way around and crosses directly over itself on the Devil's Gate High Bridge, a slender trestle standing about 95 feet above the creek. From your seat, you can look down and watch the lower track, the very rails you rolled over minutes earlier, passing beneath your feet. The gamble did not last. As the silver ran out, the loop fell silent, and the great bridge was torn down and sold for scrap. For decades, the canyon sat empty. Then, a full century later, crews rebuilt the high bridge to the original plans, and the little train climbs its impossible spiral once again. So would you ride a corkscrew, hung in the mountain air, staring down at your own tracks below, just to see how the West once bent iron to its will?
But if you keep going, you can go out to Spiral Jetty, and that's kind of cool.
On the shoulder of Mount Pilatus, above Lake Lucerne in Switzerland, climbs a little red train that arguably should not be able to grip the mountain at all. This is the Pilatus Railway, and since 1889, it has held a record no one has ever taken from it: the steepest cogwheel railway in the world. At its worst, the track tilts to a 48% grade. That is steep enough that you could not stand upright on it, a slope most people would climb on their hands and knees. An ordinary train would simply slide back down. What saves this one is a clever trick hidden between the rails. A central steel bar with teeth cut into its sides, gripped by horizontal gears beneath the car that lock it to the mountain so it cannot tip or slip even in a hard crosswind. Still something in you rebels on the way up. The valley drops away behind the rock wall, slides past just beyond the glass, and for half an hour, the only thing between you and a very long tumble toward the lake is a row of steel teeth doing their job. locals have their own take on the unease. For centuries, this was called Dragon Mountain, a peak said to be haunted and best left alone. So, which will you trust on the climb? The engineering or the old warning to stay off the dragon's back? Deep in the Shan Hills of Myanmar stands a bridge that looks a century out of place because it very nearly is. This is the Gokteek Viaduct, a vast lattice of steel flung across a green gorge on the old railway line between Mandalay and the town of Lashio. When it was finished in 1900, it was the largest railway trestle in the world. The numbers still impress. It runs about 2,260 feet from end to end and stands roughly 335 feet above the gorge floor, carried on tall, slender steel towers. Below that, the drop keeps going. The stream at the bottom disappears into a cave in the limestone hundreds of feet deeper still. And every piece of it was cast far away in Pennsylvania in the United States, then shipped halfway around the world and bolted together over this remote ravine. More than 100 years of monsoon rain and heat have worked on that old steel ever since, so the train does not race across. It slows to a careful walking pace, and as the wheels inch out over the void, the whole frame ticks and creaks under the load, a sound no passenger forgets. For the people aboard, there are no walls of safety glass and no thick guardrails, just open windows, a narrow deck of track, and a long green nothing falling away on both sides. Some lean out to photograph it. Others go very quiet. Cross it slowly enough, suspended on hand-built iron above that gorge, and the century behind the bridge stops feeling like history. It starts to feel like something you are trusting with your life right now, one creak at a time. Off the southern tip of India, a railway leaves the mainland and strikes out straight across the open sea toward the sacred island of Rameswaram. This is the Pamban crossing, and when the first bridge opened here in 1914, it was India's first sea bridge. a low ribbon of track running well over a mile across the Pork Strait, with a section in the middle that lifted to let ships slip through. The trouble is where it sits. This is deep inside the Indian Ocean's cyclone belt, a place of sudden storms, hard salt wind, and waves that can climb right over the rails. In 1964, a monster cyclone proved exactly how cruel that can be, sweeping a passenger train clean off the bridge and into the sea, and taking more than 100 lives with it. For over a century, the old bridge held on while the salt air ate at every rivet. By 2022, it was finally worn out and closed for good. But the crossing was too important to abandon, and in 2025, a brand new lifting bridge opened right alongside it, carrying the trains on across that same restless water. So the sea still gets the last word out here. Would you take that ride across open ocean, trusting steel and timing against a coastline built for storms? High on the Qinghai Plateau in western China lies a lake so still and so bright that people call it the mirror of the sky. This is Chaka Salt Lake, sitting more than 10,000 feet above sea level, and on a calm day, its surface becomes a flawless sheet of glass that swallows the mountains and clouds whole. Running straight out across it is a small train. The rails are laid over the hard crust of salt, so as the little carriages roll toward the horizon, they seem to float across the reflected sky itself, carrying riders out into a world with no clear line between water and air. It is one of the strangest and most beautiful railway rides you can take anywhere. The beauty comes with a quiet bite. This high, the air is thin enough to leave you lightheaded and short of breath, and the surface you are gliding over is not soil, but salt, a dense wet crust that eats at metal and leaves the rails and wheels crusted a ghostly white. Nothing built out here lasts long without a fight. Step off at the far end onto a plain of white that mirrors the heavens in every direction, and the train behind you looks less like a machine and more like a thin, dark thread stitched across the sky. Devil's Gate High Bridge sits 38 meters above Clear Creek, and when the narrow gauge train rolls onto it, you understand immediately why it was considered a marvel of its age. The Georgetown Loop was built in 1884 to climb a 183-meter elevation gain in just a few kilometers, an impossible gradient for conventional rail. The solution, a spiral loop. The track curves around itself, crosses the valley on an open trestle bridge, and spirals upward to the silver mines above. Standing in the carriage on the bridge, the track curves away behind you and below you simultaneously. The creek roars far beneath. The wooden frame shifts slightly, as it always has, under the weight of the locomotive. The mine workers who built this route didn't think about the engineering. They thought about the silver waiting at the top. The bridge was just the price of admission. In 1882, the Queensland government commissioned a railway through the rainforest to Kuranda. It was supposed to take 3 years. It took 5 because the rainforest doesn't welcome intruders. Workers cut through dense jungle, blasted through granite, and hand-carved 15 tunnels through the barren gorge cliff face. The track climbs 327 meters in just over 30 kilometers, hugging cliff faces so closely that passengers on one side can reach out and touch wet rock. Today, the train carries tourists. The jungle has grown back so completely that in sections, the carriage moves through a green tunnel of leaves and roots and absolute darkness before bursting back into open sky above the gorge. The waterfall at Barren Gorge thunders past the window, and in that sound is a quiet reminder everything humans built here, the rainforest is slowly, methodically taking back. The name means devil's nose. One look explains why. The mountain near Alausi drops nearly 800 meters in just 12 kilometers, a near-vertical volcanic wall that stopped railway engineers cold in 1901. There was no conventional way through. So they built a zigzag. The train inches forward onto a ledge, stops, reverses up a higher section, stops, then creeps forward again, climbing the cliff face in switchbacks that defy every assumption about what a train track can do. In the years when passengers rode on the roof, The switchbacks became legendary bodies, leaning into the turn as volcanic rock rushed past at arm's length. Today, passengers stay inside. But El Nariz del Diablo is still a conversation the train has with the mountain. And for over 120 years, somehow the mountain has let the train win. Every time. From Pakistan, the journey moves west, into Iran, into a different kind of impossible. The Varesk Bridge is a monumental single-stone arch, 110 meters tall, thrown across a secluded gorge in the rugged Alborz Mountains. No steel, no cables, just masterful masonry brick and concrete curved and stacked with surgical precision. And across it every day, a full passenger train rolls through the mountains between the capital city of Tehran and the Caspian Sea. Stand at the bottom of the gorge and look up. The arch rises above you, the sheer rock walls on both sides closing in, and if the sun is behind the bridge, the whole thing turns gold. That is the bridge. That is what 110 meters looks like from below, a defiance of gravity in stone. This isn't the impossible of poverty and necessity like the bridge back in Pakistan. This is the impossible of human ambition, the kind that makes people look at an impassable mountain range and decide to force a railway through it anyway. European engineers built this in 1935. Hand drills, wooden scaffolding dynamite, a multinational crew, Danish, Austrian, Italian, working in a gorge that had no road, in no easy way to lift anything, no margin for geological mistakes. It took years. Some of them didn't make it home. The bridge has been running trains for nearly 90 years. During the geopolitical crisis of World War II, Hitler asked Reza Shah to destroy it to cut Allied supply lines to the Soviet Union. Reza Shah refused. Churchill later called it the Bridge of Victory. Nobody calls it that anymore, just Varesk, just the architectural marvel in the Iranian mountains that shouldn't exist and keeps running anyway. Over in Hubei, China, the Optics Valley suspended sky train hangs from a single rail and glides through the city of Wuhan like something borrowed from a science fiction set. There is no driver on board. The whole line runs itself. The cars ride about 33 feet up, wrapped in glass that opens a 270-degree view across the rooftops, and the floor beneath your feet is transparent too, so the streets slide by directly below you. Powered by permanent magnet motors, it moves at up to roughly 43 miles an hour without the rattle you expect from a train. The route runs about 6.5 miles through a district known for its tech industry. Riding it feels less like public transit and more like being quietly floated above the city, watching everyday life pass under a sheet of glass. The Shanghai Maglev in China is the fastest commercial train of its kind anywhere, and riding it feels a little like cheating physics. Magnets lift the entire train about 0.4 inches clear of the track, so it never actually touches the rail it runs on. With nothing to create friction, it slices forward on an aerodynamic nose and hits a top speed near 268 miles an hour within minutes of leaving the platform. The ride is eerily smooth and almost silent. The full trip between Pudong Airport and the edge of the city covers about 19 miles, and the train swallows it in roughly 8 minutes. Watch the speed readout climb in the cabin, and you can feel the outside world smear into a blur. Built on deep, heavy foundations to hold that speed steady, it stands as one of the clearest glimpses of what everyday travel might one day feel like. Our next stop is one of the most dramatic mountains in all of China. It rises straight out of the forests near the city of Zhangjiajie in Hunan province, and near its summit, the rock is pierced clean through by an enormous natural opening. The locals call it Heaven's Gate. From the valley floor, it looks like a doorway cut into the sky, more than 430 feet tall, with daylight pouring through to the other side. For most of human history, you reach that gate the hard way. A road now climbs to the foot of it, folding back on itself 99 times as it claws up the mountainside, and from there, a stone staircase of 999 steps rises straight toward the opening. People still make that climb today, one breath at a time, the way travelers and pilgrims have for centuries. And here is how serious this gate is. In 2006, stunt pilots flew fighter jets straight through the opening, threading aircraft through a hole in a mountain at full speed. The footage looks almost fake. It is not. Getting to the top is its own kind of expedition. The longest passenger cable car in the world runs for about 4.5 miles, carrying you from the city right up the mountain, gliding over rooftops, then farmland, then the cliffs themselves. And once you are up there, narrow walkways cling to the rock face, some of them floored with glass, so the only thing between your feet and a drop of thousands of feet is a clear pane you can stare straight through. For more than 200 days a year, this whole place is swallowed by cloud. The steps turn slick, the gate fills with mist, and the people climbing toward it seem to walk straight into the sky and disappear. In 1972, the villagers of Guoliang, isolated in the Taihang Mountains, asked the government for a road. The government said no. So they built it themselves. 13 men spent 5 years chiseling a tunnel through solid rock by hand. The tunnel they carved is 1.2 kilometers long, 5 meters wide, and along its walls they cut openings. Windows looking straight out of the mountain at the valley hundreds of meters below. No glass, no barriers, just open holes in the rock. The tunnel is spectacular. It is also entirely hand-built by farmers with no engineering training, designed by instinct and courage rather than structural calculation. The men who built it called it a necessity. It's been named one of the most terrifying roads in China. Both things are true. More than 600 curves in a single road. Panlong Ancient Road in Yunnan Province climbs to 4,100 meters above sea level through the Laojun mountain range. 600 curves means you are almost never going straight, turn after turn after turn, each one requiring full attention, each at altitude, where your brain is quietly running on less oxygen than it wants. By the time you've navigated 300 curves, you're tired. Your hands are stiff. Your focus has been working at full capacity for hours. And you're halfway. Here's what makes it worth it. The views are extraordinary. Alpine meadows, ancient Tibetan Buddhist forests, the sweep of the Yunnan highlands. The light at high altitude does things to color that lower elevations cannot replicate. Photographers come specifically for this. But local drivers know the quiet math. 600 turns, thin air, slippery surface, tired driver. The numbers add up in only one direction if you lose your concentration. On Panlong, the mountain doesn't offer rest stops. On a map, BR 319 is a line connecting Manaus in the Amazon basin to Porto Velho in Rondônia state. On the ground, in wet season, it's a test of whether you still want to be here. During the rainy season, the unpaved middle stretch turns into channels of liquid mud that can swallow the wheel hubs of a large truck. Caravans travel together, the only sensible strategy, taking turns getting stuck and pulling each other out. A convoy can take a week to cover a section that took 2 hours in October. Drivers stop measuring the journey in kilometers. They measure it in events. How many extractions? How many nights sleeping on the road in the jungle? And the jungle around BR 319 is extraordinary. Primary Amazon forest, dense, ancient, full of noise and movement. At night, anchored in mud somewhere between Manaus and Porto Velho, the sound of the forest is overwhelming. Dangerous and magnificent at the same time. Always the same combination. The Hunza River doesn't flow. It forces its way through. Down through the rugged high-altitude terrain, of the Karakoram Valley in northern Pakistan, between cliffs as black as coal, it moves with the kind of noise that fills the entire valley, a low, constant, seismic-like roar you feel in your chest before you hear it with your ears. Stand on the bank long enough and you stop noticing the sound. It becomes the silence. And strung across that river, high above the water, is the thing people call the Hussaini Suspension Bridge, often cited as one of the world's most dangerous crossings. A single thread of rope and wood wide enough for one person sitting at a dizzying elevation above sea level. Look closely at the floor. Some planks are gone. They fell a long time ago and nobody replaced them. You can look straight through those gaps and see the turbulent glacial runoff below. Every morning, people from the village of Hussaini walk across this perilous rope bridge to reach their fields. Children cross it to get to school. Elderly men and women take it one step at a time, hands tight on the corroding wire cables, eyes fixed straight ahead. Never looking down, never. An older man steps onto the bridge. Wind hits. The whole suspension structure lurches. He doesn't stop, doesn't hesitate, keeps walking. The frightening thing isn't the bridge. The frightening thing is that for him, this is just the morning commute in this extreme mountain environment. Right beside the Hussaini Bridge are the ruins of an older one. You can still see the anchor points drilled into the bedrock where the cables used to be fixed. That bridge was destroyed by flash flooding in the 1970s. The villagers built this replacement using whatever materials they could carry in on foot because there was no road to bring anything heavier. And if this one goes too, they'll build another, because on the other side, there's still a field, still a school, still a reason. Stand on the Hussaini Suspension Bridge in a strong wind, and the whole thing sways. Not vibrates, not trembles. Sways like a giant hammock trying to throw you off. The cables scream. The wood groans without stopping. And the people of Hussaini still cross it every single day. Rising out of Guizhou, China, the Huajiang Canyon Bridge looks like a steel ribbon flung across one of the deepest gorges on the planet. When it opened in the fall of 2025, it took the title of the highest bridge on Earth, and nothing else even comes close. The deck floats about 2,050 feet above the Beipan River, nearly twice the height of the Eiffel Tower, high enough that clouds drift beneath the road while you cross. It was the first bridge ever built to clear more than 2,000 feet from deck to water, and its main span reaches over 4,600 feet between two towers anchored into sheer limestone cliffs. What makes it a destination, rather than just a record, is what sits on top of it. A glass elevator carries visitors to a cafe perched near the towers. A glass walkway lets you stand out over the drop, and the bravest can bungee straight into the canyon. crossing that once took 2 hours of white-knuckle mountain switchbacks now takes about 2 minutes. If a bridge in the clouds is the kind of place you would drop everything to see, tap subscribe so the rest of this journey finds you. Strung across the Dahang Canyon in Hunan, China, the Aizai Bridge does something almost no other bridge does. Both ends run straight into tunnels, bored into the mountainsides, so the road vanishes into solid rock the moment it leaves the deck. That makes it the longest tunnel-to-tunnel bridge in the world. The deck hangs about 1,102 feet above the valley floor, with a main span reaching roughly 3,858 feet and a total length near 5,033 feet from one mountain to the other. Getting it built took a different kind of thinking, since there was barely any flat ground to work from on either side. The finished crossing, built for around $208 million, turned a punishing mountain detour into a quick straight shot through the range. Stand at one of the viewpoints nearby, and the sense of scale plays tricks on you, the cars overhead shrinking to specks against a gap in the earth this deep. Off the coast of Guangdong, China, the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge runs for about 34 miles across open ocean, the longest sea crossing on the planet. It links 3 cities that the water had always kept apart. Building it took around 440,000 tons of high-strength steel engineered to stand up to salt storms and time for a full 120 years. This is not a structure meant to be replaced in your lifetime. The clever part is what happens in the middle, so that giant cargo ships can still pass overhead. Part of the crossing dives into a tunnel about 130 feet below the sea, then surfaces again on the far side. 2 artificial islands raised out of open water mark the points where road becomes tunnel. Cross it on a clear day, and the far end simply melts into the horizon, a ribbon of highway laid straight across the sea with no land in sight for miles. In the Wulingyuan Mountains of Hunan, China, the Beilong elevator climbs the bare face of a vertical cliff, a shaft of glass and steel bolted to the sandstone towers that inspired the floating peaks in Avatar. It holds the record as the tallest outdoor elevator in the world, lifting riders about 1,070 feet in a single climb. Three glass cabins run side by side up the rock, and each one reaches the top in roughly 2 minutes, carrying 50 passengers at a time above a landscape that looks prehistoric. The point was never just speed. Building the lift meant visitors could reach the summit without cutting new trails across the protected forest below. As the cabin rises, the ancient stone pillars fall away beneath you, and for a few seconds, the line between old wilderness and modern machine disappears completely. Stretched across the Yangtze River in Hubei, China, the Three Gorges Dam is one of the largest engineering wonders people have ever built, and standing at its base is a lesson in scale. The wall of concrete runs for well over a mile, holding back a reservoir that reaches hundreds of miles upstream. Building it swallowed around 36 million cubic yards of concrete, enough to bury whole cities, along with roughly 1 billion pounds of steel. It generates about 22,500 megawatts of clean power, the highest capacity of any hydroelectric plant on Earth. For the ships that need to get past it, engineers built a giant lift that hoists entire vessels, some weighing millions of pounds, up hundreds of feet in minutes, like an elevator for boats. Watching a full-size ship rise through the structure is one of the strangest sights on the whole river. Here is the detail that stops people cold. So much water sits piled in the reservoir behind it that scientists have measured a tiny change in the way the entire planet spins, a single dam nudging the rotation of the world. From the ancient mountains of Iran, the journey makes a leap, not just in geography, but in scale. From handmade to machine-made, from 1935 to 2016. From one man's ambition to an entire valley that had kept two provinces apart for centuries. Try to hold this in your head. The Eiffel Tower is 300 meters tall. It's one of the tallest structures in Europe, and you have to nearly break your neck to see the top from the ground. The Beipanjiang Bridge is taller than the Eiffel Tower, and cars drive across it every day. The road surface sits 565 meters above the river below, not above sea level, above the water flowing directly underneath it. When you see this bridge from a drone, you see what it doesn't want you to see: thick white fog filling the entire valley and the bridge rising out of it like a thread someone forgot to put away. The trucks crawling across the top look like ants. Before this bridge existed, crossing from Guizhou to Yunnan took 5 hours, winding mountain switchbacks, crumbling road edges, sheer drops with no barrier. Now it takes 1 hour. That's what this bridge actually is. Not a record, a door that didn't exist before. Building it nearly didn't happen. The rock walls of this valley are soft limestone, riddled with hidden caves and cracks the engineers couldn't see until they were already inside the mountain. Most bridge designs need massive anchors drilled into the banks. This rock couldn't hold them. The geology was, in the words of the chief engineer, a nightmare. The only solution was a design where all the weight travels through cables into the towers, nothing touching the banks at all, and to build the deck across 720 meters of open air with no scaffolding possible. At this height, they extended it outward from both towers at once, section by section, balancing the weight on both sides the way you'd balance a scale, never letting it tip. One mistake in the tension of a single cable, and the whole thing pulls apart. The men who built this worked over 500 meters above the river. The valley floor was often invisible beneath them. In winter, ice formed on the cables and fell onto the deck below, so engineers moved every cable to the outer edges of the bridge, forcing the ice to fall into the valley instead. When the bridge opened in December 2016, it entered the record books. The world's highest cable-stayed road bridge. But the deputy chief engineer didn't talk about records. He stood on the deck and said, "To me, it's more like a child. It's grown up, and now it can contribute to the society." Most of the workers who built it never drove across it. They had already gone home, left behind what they made for people who will never know their names. Before the journey ends, there is one last thing to see, because everything you've just crossed, the rotting planks, the fog, the glass, the Siberian wind, it all had one thing in common. It was real. The danger was real, or the feeling of danger was real, which amounts to the same thing. Japan has a bridge that looks like the most terrifying structure on this entire list, and it is entirely an illusion. When the photograph of Eshima Ohashi first appeared online, nobody believed it was real. A bridge so steep, it was nearly vertical. In Japan, people actually drive over that. It looked less like infrastructure and more like a roller coaster designed by someone who had stopped caring. Here is why it actually exists. Sakai Minato, on one side of Lake Nakaomi, is one of the largest fishing ports in western Japan. Dozens of large fishing vessels move in and out of that port every day. The old bridge was a drawbridge. Every time a ship needed to pass, traffic stopped for 7 to 8 minutes. Only vehicles under 14 tons could cross. Maximum 4,000 vehicles per day for a port city that was unsustainable. The solution was a fixed bridge, tall enough for ships to pass underneath without stopping traffic, 45 meters above the lake's surface at its highest point. But to reach that height, within a reasonable horizontal distance, the bridge had to be steep. That steepness is not a design quirk. It is the direct consequence of keeping the fishing fleet moving. Locals call it Betabumizaka, the pedal to the metal slope. A Daihatsu car commercial filmed there, carefully shot with a telephoto lens to make the slope look as vertical as possible, turned a regional infrastructure bridge into a global internet phenomenon overnight. Here is the answer to why it looks that way. There is nothing unusual about this bridge at all. The gradient is 6.1%, on the steeper side, equivalent to countless standard overpasses across Japanese cities. Trucks, buses, cyclists all cross it daily without incident. What you're seeing in that famous photograph is telephoto lens compression. A long lens used from far away compresses distance, making near and far objects appear stacked directly on top of each other. The bridge's slope gets magnified until it looks vertical. The curve of the bridge on the Matsui side cuts off the background, so there's nothing behind the slope to give the eye a sense of distance. The illusion snaps shut. And here is the genuinely interesting question. Once you know it's an illusion, are you still afraid? Most people are, despite knowing, despite understanding the mechanism completely, despite looking at both photographs side by side and seeing the difference clearly. The primitive part of the brain doesn't negotiate with reason. It sees a near vertical drop. It is afraid. Somewhere on the other side of that lake, a fishing boat is heading out. The bridge is high enough to let it pass. The slope that looks like the edge of the world is just the price of keeping the port open. That's all it ever was. Millau was built to be used, engineered, funded, celebrated, opened with a ceremony, It exists because a government decided it should exist. The bridges on Petra exist for a different reason entirely. Petra is a mountain on the Crimean Peninsula, a jagged limestone peak rising 1,234 meters above the Black Sea coast. From the resort town of Yalta below the summit, looks like a row of broken teeth against the sky. Getting up there requires either a winding mountain road or a cable car, and the cable car itself holds a record. Its upper span runs 1,670 meters without a single support pillar, the longest unsupported cable car span in Europe. You ride it through open air, watching the sea fall away beneath you, with nothing between the cable and the ground for the entire length. But that is not what brings people to Petra. At the summit, two suspension bridges connect the main plateau to the rocky outcrops, known as the teeth-jagged limestone formations that jut out from the ridge like the edge of a broken wall. Each bridge is about 45 meters long. The drop below them is 50 to 60 meters onto bare rock. The total elevation is over 1,200 meters above sea level. On a clear day, you can see the Black Sea in one direction and the entire southern coast of Crimea in the other. The bridges were installed in May 2015. They are a tourist attraction, not a necessity. There are safety harnesses, there are helmets. There is always a line of people waiting to cross. And yet almost everyone who steps onto them stops halfway. Not because of the drop. The drop is real, but it is the wind that does something else entirely. Petra is one of the windiest places in the region. Wind blows here 125 days a year, and when it moves at speeds that can reach 50 meters per second. That is not a breeze. That is the kind of wind that makes you genuinely recalculate your relationship with the ground beneath your feet, even when you are clipped to a safety line. There is something else about Petra that the travel photographs don't capture. This mountain sits on the Crimean Peninsula, a piece of land whose political status has been disputed since 2014, claimed by both Russia and Ukraine, administered by one, recognized by the other, and the subject of a conflict that reshaped European security. The tourists standing on these bridges, looking out at the Black Sea, some of them are Russian, some Ukrainian, some from neither country, standing on the same narrow strip of limestone, 3 meters wide, above the same drop in the same wind. The mountain doesn't know about any of that. The wind keeps blowing regardless. The journey needs to breathe. After the scale of Beipanjiang, the statistics, the fog, the 500-meter drops, the body needs a moment to reset. And there is no better place for that than this. Titalis, 3,041 meters above sea level, deep in the Swiss Alps. white snow, wind carrying fine ice crystals sideways across the air, and a slender suspension bridge protruding from a cliff face hanging in open space, the valley far below, buried in snow and silence. This is the highest pedestrian suspension bridge in Europe, 100 meters of steel grating and cable bolted into the rock and extending straight out over a 500-meter drop, 1 meter wide. That's it, enough for one person at a time. The width of your shoulders, over 500 meters of nothing. The Titulus cliff walk was engineered to handle storm winds and heavy snow loads, and it does without drama year after year. But standing out there, something still gets to you. It's not the height exactly, it's the scale of quiet. Below you, pine forests buried in snow look small enough to cover with one hand. The mountain doesn't acknowledge you're there. The wind moves through the bridge cables and keeps going. You realize, standing there, that the Alps were doing this long before the bridge existed and will be doing it long after. Most people grip the handrail before they even reach the middle. Not because the bridge moves, it barely does, but because the brain looks down through the steel grating at 500 meters of open air and starts making calculations you didn't ask it to make. Some people stop completely, stand there, both hands on the cable, not moving forward, not turning back, just frozen, not from the cold. Nanga Parbat is the 9th highest mountain in the world. Its other name is Killer Mountain. The road to its base camp, Fairy Meadows, honors that reputation from the very first kilometer. Unpaved, barely wide enough for one vehicle, running along the edge of a steep slope with no guardrails, no barriers, nothing between the door and the valley floor below. What passengers remember most is the sound. When tires move over loose gravel near the edge, stones roll off. You hear them leave, you wait, and then you hear them land. The silence between those two sounds is the measurement of how far down the bottom is. Not meters, not feet, sound. But Fairy Meadows at the end is genuinely one of the most beautiful places in Pakistan. Wildflowers, the entire south face of Nanga Parbat, filling the sky above. A silence so complete you can hear your own heartbeat. The drive terrifies you. The destination rewards you completely. That equation is why this road sees more visitors every year, not fewer. The Dalton Highway runs 666 kilometers from Fairbanks to Prudhoe Bay through the Alaskan wilderness above the Arctic Circle. No towns, no services, no cell signal, no help. In winter, temperatures reach -40 degrees Celsius. At that temperature, a breakdown isn't an inconvenience. It's an emergency with a countdown. Truckers carry survival gear, extra fuel, emergency supplies. They check everything before each trip because on the Dalton, a mechanical failure left unaddressed becomes fatal. The road surface is loose gravel and ice. A moose crossing at highway speed is equivalent to hitting a wall built from 500 kilograms of muscle and bone. The landscape is vast, raw, ancient, and completely indifferent to human life. Wilderness always is. New Zealand's rental car agreements contain a specific clause. Skipper's Canyon Road is excluded from coverage. Not discouraged, not flagged, excluded completely. The road runs through a historic Gold Rush Canyon near Queenstown. 22 kilometers of single-lane gravel, sheer drops, tight turns, and sections so narrow that two vehicles physically cannot pass each other. The road curves around solid rock faces, so you cannot see oncoming traffic until you are already facing it. When two vehicles meet, one has to reverse to the nearest passing point. On a road with drops on one side, reversing requires nerve that not everyone has. Almost everyone who drives it describes the same thing: a level of sustained quiet fear that starts at the first narrow section and doesn't leave until you're back on the main road. The canyon itself is beautiful. The Gold Rush history is real remnants of old workings are still visible along the route, and it's one of the most stressful drives on Earth. That combination is exactly why it exists on every serious adventure travel list in the Southern Hemisphere. The roads so far challenge you at specific moments. One cliff, one tunnel, one narrow section. What happens when the danger is everywhere all at once for hundreds of kilometers without a break? High in the mountains of Peru at around 11,811 feet, Huayhuachaca survives as the last grass-woven bridge of the Inca Empire, a living thread from a civilization most of us only meet in ruins. It spans roughly 118 feet across a deep canyon, and it sways and swings with every step as the wind pours through the gorge below. What keeps it alive is not repair, but rebirth. Once a year, 4 indigenous communities gather at the canyon and rebuild the entire bridge by hand from scratch in only 3 days. The main cables are braided from dried mountain grass, each one twisted nearly as thick as a human thigh, strong enough to carry everyone who will cross in the year to come. Stand on the finished deck, and you can see the river straight through the gaps in the woven grass far below your feet. Then comes the part that stops you. When the new bridge is done, the old one is cut loose and dropped into the water, released to the river as an offering. It is not just engineering passed down through the centuries. It is a promise the community makes to the mountain and to each other and keeps. Out in the karst country of Guizhou, China, the Pingtang Bridge threads a highway between limestone peaks on some of the tallest bridge towers ever raised. The main concrete tower climbs about 1,089 feet taller than the Eiffel Tower, the highest bridge tower on the planet. All three towers pinch inward at the middle, a slim-waisted shape borrowed from traditional ethnic dress in the region. It softens what would otherwise be a brute of a structure. The full crossing runs about 7,005 feet, a cable-stayed span strung between deep cliffs. The road itself floats around 1,020 feet above the river below. Drive across on a misty morning, and the towers vanish into the cloud above you while the valley drops away beneath, so the whole car seems to hang in empty space. From the ancient mountains of Iran, the journey makes a leap, not just in geography, but in scale. From handmade to machine-made, from 1935 to 2016. From one man's ambition to an entire valley that had kept two provinces apart for centuries. Try to hold this in your head. The Eiffel Tower is 300 meters tall. It's one of the tallest structures in Europe, and you have to nearly break your neck to see the top from the ground. The Beipanjiang Bridge is taller than the Eiffel Tower, and cars drive across it every day. The road surface sits 565 meters above the river below, not above sea level, above the water flowing directly underneath it. When you see this bridge from a drone, you see what it doesn't want you to see: thick white fog filling the entire valley and the bridge rising out of it like a thread someone forgot to put away. The trucks crawling across the top look like ants. Before this bridge existed, crossing from Guizhou to Yunnan took 5 hours Winding mountain switchbacks, crumbling road edges, sheer drops with no barrier. Now it takes 1 hour. That's what this bridge actually is. Not a record, a door that didn't exist before. Building it nearly didn't happen. The rock walls of this valley are soft limestone, riddled with hidden caves and cracks the engineers couldn't see until they were already inside the mountain. Most bridge designs need massive anchors drilled into the banks. This rock couldn't hold them. The geology was, in the words of the chief engineer, a nightmare. The only solution was a design where all the weight travels through cables into the towers, nothing touching the banks at all. And to build the deck across 720 meters of open air with no scaffolding possible, at this height, they extended it outward from both towers at once, section by section, balancing the weight on both sides the way you'd balance a scale, never letting it tip. One mistake in the tension of a single cable, and the whole thing pulls apart. The men who built this worked over 500 meters above the river. The valley floor was often invisible beneath them. In winter, ice formed on the cables and fell onto the deck below, so engineers moved every cable to the outer edges of the bridge, forcing the ice to fall into the valley instead. When the bridge opened in December 2016, it entered the record books, the world's highest cable-stayed road bridge. But the deputy chief engineer didn't talk about records. He stood on the deck and said, "To me, it's more like a child. It's grown up, and now it can contribute to the society." Most of the workers who built it never drove across it. They had already gone home, left behind what they made for people who will never know their names. Before the journey ends, there is one last thing to see, because everything you've just crossed, the rotting planks, the fog, the glass, the Siberian wind, it all had one thing in common. It was real. The danger was real, or the feeling of danger was real, which amounts to the same thing. Japan has a bridge that looks like the most terrifying structure on this entire list, and it is completely, entirely an illusion. When the photograph of Eshima Ohashi first appeared online, nobody believed it was real. A bridge so steep, it was nearly vertical. In Japan, people actually drive over that. It looked less like infrastructure and more like a roller coaster designed by someone who had stopped caring. Here is why it actually exists. Sakai Minato, on one side of Lake Nakaomi, is one of the largest fishing ports in western Japan. Dozens of large fishing vessels move in and out of that port every day. The old bridge was a drawbridge. Every time a ship needed to pass, traffic stopped for 7 to 8 minutes. Only vehicles under 14 tons could cross. Maximum 4,000 vehicles per day, for a port city that was unsustainable. The solution was a fixed bridge, tall enough for ships to pass underneath without stopping traffic, 45 meters above the lake surface at its highest point. But to reach that height, within a reasonable horizontal distance, the bridge had to be steep. That steepness is not a design quirk. It is the direct consequence of keeping the fishing fleet moving. Locals call it Beta Bumizaka, the pedal to the metal slope. A Daihatsu car commercial filmed there, carefully shot with a telephoto lens to make the slope look as vertical as possible, turned a regional infrastructure bridge into a global internet phenomenon overnight. Here is the answer to why it looks that way. There is nothing unusual about this bridge at all. The gradient is 6.1%, on the steeper side, equivalent to countless standard overpasses across Japanese cities. Trucks, buses, cyclists all cross it daily without incident. What you're seeing in that famous photograph is telephoto lens compression. A long lens used from far away compresses distance, making near and far objects appear stacked directly on top of each other. The bridge's slope gets magnified until it looks vertical. The curve of the bridge on the Matsu side cuts off the background, so there's nothing behind the slope to give the eye a sense of distance. The illusion snaps shut. And here is the genuinely interesting question. Once you know it's an illusion, are you still afraid? Most people are, despite knowing, despite understanding the mechanism completely, despite looking at both photographs side by side and seeing the difference clearly. The primitive part of the brain doesn't negotiate with reason. It sees a near vertical drop. It is afraid. Somewhere on the other side of that lake, a fishing boat is heading out. The bridge is high enough to let it pass. The slope that looks like the edge of the world is just the price of keeping the port open. That's all it ever was. So there they are, a scattering of railways clinging to the edges of the possible. Some were flung across gorges and deserts by sheer nerve. Some were pulled through by faith or greed or a stubbornness that bordered on madness. Every one of them asks the same quiet thing of anyone who climbs aboard, to trust a thin line of steel over a very long drop or a very deep sea or a mountain that never really agreed to be crossed. Maybe that is the whole pull of it. For a few miles, the world feels enormous again, and we feel very small. And somehow, that is exactly why we go. Now, we would love to hear from you. Of all these routes, which one would you actually dare to ride, and which one could you never set foot on? Tell us in the comments. And if you made it all the way to the final station with us, subscribe and stay aboard for the next journey.